So you want to immerse yourself in Japanese, but you don't know what to read. You want to start with manga, but every time you pick up Berserk, you cry realizing you can't read a single lick of it. Most people don't want a boring manga to study with, trust me, but when it comes to learning a language, it's very hard to balance both an easy and comprehensible manga, as well as a fun and interesting story that's not aimed towards babies. Well, luckily for you, I've decided that while I'm finished working on my longer Japanese language method guide video, that's a mouthful, that I'd go ahead and explain a few manga that I find both easy and actually interesting to read. So without wasting too much of your time, let's get into it. The first manga is one I hold close to my heart. While it isn't the first manga that I've ever read in Japanese, it was the first anime I've ever immersed in. So for all intents and purposes, I felt it necessary for me to make this the first on the list. Not only is this manga one of the easiest mangas you can read right now, since it's based in the modern day, doesn't use too much slang, and most importantly it's set in a middle school, but you're also going to be able to start reading this almost as soon as you feel that you've learned enough words. While there is a lot of speaking, there's not usually any massive text bubbles, at least from what I've seen from the most recent volume, and the visual gags and context given to you in the manga also makes reading way easier if you're struggling with the understanding of certain words. The stories in each volume are also very short, allowing you to take your time on each story. Once you're done with it, you can simply bookmark the chapter and wait until you're ready to go again. The stories are also really good and funny. It follows the two main characters, Takagi-san and Nishikata, two middle schoolers who sit next to each other in class. They're friends, but it's obvious to us, the readers, that Takagi-san obviously has a crush on Nishikata. The way that she conveys these feelings is by teasing him into playing different games that she almost always rigs to win in her favor. It's kind of more like a psychological horror manga, because there's times where she'll pretend that Nishikata is winning, just for her to be like, "Just kidding, motherfucker, I've been playing with you this whole time."
このチャンスを逃したくない。高木さん、鼻をほじってみてよ。
わかりました。
高木さんの恥ずかしいところ見てやる。やっぱり今のなし。違うって脇腹つくんじゃなくてっていうかなして言ったの。本当にまだ。
There's currently 23 volumes, so you have a lot to read through. And once you're done, you could even go out and try the anime if you really wanted to go for them free listening comprehension points. Next, we have a must-read for any Japanese language learners. The reason I put this after Takagi-san is because I know how big of a meme Yotsubato is in the Japanese language community. It's pretty much everyone's first manga, since not only is the comedy good, but the Japanese is fairly simple and just complex enough to the point that even people who've been studying for quite some time will still find some new words within its story. It's also a bit middle of the road compared to Takagi-san, because since there's more dialogue and said dialogue is noticeably harder, I think it's a good manga to start if you're already a few months into studying and need a manga to put your skills to the test. I think this is a perfect N4 and beyond book. Yotsuba herself speaks like a child and thus is reflected in her using more kana overall in her dialogue compared to the older characters. While there isn't a giant overlapping story within the manga, at least not from the few volumes I've read, there are characters that return in later chapters. To give a quick overview of the manga, we have multiple main characters. Obviously Yotsuba being the front and center of the manga, but the Ayase family and Jumbo show up fairly frequently to the point where I would consider them to be main characters, since without them, this series would not have the same level of charm. There's 15 volumes and the chapters are generally longer than that of Takagi-san, so again, you're gonna find a lot of content in this manga, all while being based in an early 2000s Japan focused on the life of, well, a child. For the last manga on this list, I wanted to bring up a manga I myself recently started to read. While it's not a hard manga, it's the hardest on this list, and I should cement the fact that manga is aimed towards Japanese people, not foreigners. Meaning, easy is a relative term to what the broadness of Japanese language holds. Yes, this manga is considered somewhat easy. It has a simple premise, tons of visuals to help readers with context, and bases itself in the real world. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, I don't actually know what you're saying, but I'm guessing that you're asking why I think it's harder than the rest. And while I don't have a direct answer to this, once I explain the basic premise of the story, it might paint a better picture. 今日から俺は is a story about two boys named Mitsubashi Takashi and Ito Shinji, and their good old-fashioned Yankee. Yes, this manga was created in the 80s, yes it's dated as hell, but sure is a good story. The two main characters, at least in the beginning, are horrible people. Mostly looking at you, Takashi, because that dude is the type of guy to find some random American child on the street, kidnap her to pretend that they're related just so that he can keep his dyed blonde hair at school. 今日からおめえは犯罪者だ。何をしている？おい、おい、犬や猫捨ててくる。おい、気をつけろ。伊藤、今、手伝ったな。はっ！共犯だ。本当にこんなところに捨ててくのか？誰か親切な人が拾ってくれるって。なんてやつだ。鬼だ。悪魔だ。胸が痛めないのか？俺にはできねえ。待ってろ。お嬢ちゃん。あいつ、なんだよ。世の中悪いやつなんかいねえな。これは？
知らない。
そうそう、頭いいね。じゃあ、これ。
知ってる。
そう、もう一言。そうだよ、そう、頭いいね。ほら、チョコレートだよ。You know what's bad when Shinji constantly says, 怖い when he's dragged into the stupid stuff that Takashi puts him into. Where this manga becomes hard is obviously since it's based on Yankee culture, the way characters speak is actually quite difficult. It's also a bit dated, so the Japanese itself, while still understandable to any native speaker, might be outdated as well. This is a good manga for anyone starting N2 material, or hell, even if you're fluent, you should read this manga. It's a blast to read through, and when you get into some fight with some random Japanese guy in Japan, you'll know the exact words to use.
することや。
おい、偏差値いくつでこら。
76だよ。
失格かよかや。
ああ、てめんとこはいくつだ。
こっちも76だよ。
あ、一緒じゃねえか。
And that's gonna do it for all the easy mangas I'm gonna recommend for today. If you guys want to see more mangas, or maybe even some animes that beginners can use to immerse, comment down below or join my Discord where you'll be most up to date on all my content. But that's it for today. And again, thank you for watching.